Hey everybody, so today I am walking around Cuba. That's right, I'm in the town of Cuba, in the country of Azerbaijan. Traveled a long way to make that stupid gag. I flew into Azerbaijan very late last night. I got into the capital city of Baku, which is where I spent a few hours just resting in their airport until this morning, when I rented a car and then drove a few hours north to this city, which is called Cuba. So I'll do some exploring around here. I know that this region is pretty famous for its epic mountains, as you can see in the distance. I'm in the local park. Found some stray pups just playing with each other. Look at how cute they are. Hey, what's up, old guy? Sorry, I don't have any food for you. You can play with my shoe, though, as long as you don't have rabies. I'm not sure why this area has so many statues, but I'm not going to complain about it. In case you don't know, Azerbaijan is located in a region of the world known as the South Caucasus. So that's a region that is just south of Russia and a little north of the Middle East. And this is my second time in this region. The first time was a couple years ago when I went to Georgia. I really liked it, so that's why I'm back. So you can tell by the mountains in the distance, this is a popular area for hiking, especially for Russians who want to get the fuck out of Russia. Azerbaijan is a former Soviet republic, and it's also a majority Muslim country. But what's interesting is that this town in particular has a strong Jewish population. In fact, there's a museum nearby called the Mountain Jews Museum, which I didn't know you could name a museum that. I'm not going to spend much more time in this town just because I have a whole lot planned for today and not a whole lot of time for it. But first I'm going to stop by the supermarket to get some much needed food. I've seen a lot of walkway overpasses, and this might be the best one. I like places that don't take copyright laws too seriously. I mean, check those guys out. I got some Oreos and apples for myself for later today. And here is my car that I rented. I will not be filming anything while driving. This is the road I've been driving on to get to those mountains. This place is a lot like Lauterbrunnen over in Switzerland. In fact, this might even be better because it has the leader of Azerbaijan. So the road is getting kind of fucking insane, especially for my car, which is not a 4x4. So instead I'm gonna hike around here and see how far this goes. I'm in a very remote corner of Azerbaijan. The nearest town is about an hour from here. And for whatever reason, I've been seeing a number of military guys. No idea what's going on there. Over there we have a waterfall. I believe it's called Grease. Something like that. My original plan was to drive to the very end of a dead-end road that brings you all the way to this huge mountain. But unfortunately, that's quite the challenge to get to, as well as the time commitment. Would have been like another hour or so of just shitty mountain driving. And I figure what I have right here is good enough. As a rule of thumb, I generally avoid renting a car. There are usually better public transportation options available, and when there aren't, you can use a taxi. Usually renting a car is expensive and not worth it, especially considering how much of a hassle it can be. But there are times where it is worth it to see remote corners of a country. And I've got to say, Azerbaijan is definitely one of those times. I'm renting this car for today and tomorrow, and I'm really making the most out of it. I mean, check this shit out. This is unbelievable. I love this country. Now that I'm in the middle of nowhere, I can talk about what's going on with Azerbaijan and Armenia. So the two countries used to be part of the USSR. And when that collapsed, they started fighting each other because Azerbaijan has a significant population of ethnic Armenians inside its territories. Well, that fighting had gone kind of on and off for decades. And apparently now there's going to be peace. So we'll see how long that lasts, but while it is peaceful, I figured it was a good time to finally check out this country. I think this is about as far up this mountain as I want to hike. I think it keeps going for a bit. One more look from this view. I know a lot of hikers talk about Nepal and northern India, but I mean, this is like almost as good, really. You should consider Azerbaijan. I'm on my way back to town, and it's not just, isolated wilderness out here. There's a ton of resorts and restaurants and whatever this place is. Good news, I found Lady. I'm driving down the road, and these ducks were in my way. I've pulled over for a second to look at a very interesting mountain over in the distance. My original plan was to go up and try to hike up at least a part of the mountain, but there was a woman asking for money near the base of it, and I didn't want to deal with that. Finally made it to Baku. I dropped my car off at a parking garage. So yeah, I was driving while tired, and that's not a good thing to do, especially if you are driving for 6 hours in a day. I sort of drifted at some point because of how tired I was, and I regret it. And you should take that shit seriously if you're ever driving while you're tired. I think my plan for the evening is just to walk around for a little bit and then to rest a whole bunch. Still a little freaked out that my lack of sleep almost killed me, although this architecture is doing a lot to help. I just got about 10 hours of sleep, so I should be good to drive finally. And now I'm going to drive to a mud volcano. Apparently they have mud volcanoes here. I made it to a museum that's right next to the mud volcano. And near the entrance, there was someone offering me a taxi ride, which is odd because I was in a car at the time. Quite the hustle that they have going. This place that I'm at today is called Gobustan. And it isn't just the site of mud volcanoes, although that's certainly part of the attraction. It is also a site of very ancient petroglyphs. I believe the ones here are like 6,000 years old or something like that. And so because of that, this place is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Whenever I think about ancient cavemen, this is exactly the type of place that I imagine. Which is good because this is where they lived. Here we have some ancient rock art. And here we have some more recent one. All this rock art is actually not too far from Baku. It's maybe about an hour south. And over there in the distance, you can actually see the Caspian Sea, which is the very large sea that borders Azerbaijan. The ancient people who lived here dug out a lot of these cups in the ground And they had a lot of purposes, including preparing meals and collecting rainwater, according to the sign I just read. I'm driving over to the mud volcanoes now, and I have to make sure not to run into any of these guys. You know, driving in Azerbaijan is interesting because on one hand, everybody here drives like shit. But on the other hand, the police constantly monitor how fast you're going, like much more so than anywhere else I've ever driven. And there are a lot of cases of foreigners having to pay bribes. So that's why I only keep about $20 in my wallet, and the rest I hide in other parts of the car. Well, I've finally made it to the mud volcanoes, or at least some of them. So I'm curious to see how close I can get to the actual mud in the mud volcanoes. Also, beyond the mud volcanoes, this landscape is like the most like Martian landscape I've ever seen. I mean, look at that. I'm not seeing any signs telling me not to put my hands in the mud volcano, which means I should do it. You know, I wasn't sure what to expect when I first heard about mud volcanoes, but those were mud volcanoes. Glad I saw them. Well, I'm back in Baku. I just drove all the way back here and dropped off my rental car. And so I'll be exploring town for the next few days, finding random stuff like underground toilets. I gotta be careful with what I film around here. There's a lot of military and cops, and they don't like being filmed. Baku is the capital of Azerbaijan, and it's an interesting city. So Azerbaijan is right next to the Caspian Sea, and because of that, it has a bunch of gas reserves that it sells to Europe. And so that because of that gas wealth, Baku now has a bunch of futuristic architecture that we'll be checking out hopefully later today. I'm kind of feeling like shit today a little bit. I think I pushed myself too hard because, you know, I had basically an entire day of flying to get here. And then after that, I had a jam-packed 2-day-long road trip. So I'm glad to be taking it easy this week. I will say I'm feeling a lot better now that I'm walking around. Although I think that's because the place that I'm staying in has a bit of mold. Always check for mold. I'm pretty well traveled, and pretty much everywhere I go, there's somebody feeding pigeons. I found a nice place to overlook the city, and this is what it looks like. Baku doesn't have quite as many cats as other places that I've been, but it certainly has a lot of cats. I'm very impressed by the central park that they have in town. They've even got one of these mazes where, if you're not a short person, you can figure it out pretty easily. I forgot to mention this yesterday, but when I went to return my rental car, I actually had to pay a fine because there are surveillance cameras everywhere, and they catch you when you're speeding. One thing I do like a lot about this city is that it has plenty of underpasses under busy streets, like this one that I'm currently in. Here's a map of the area that I've been walking around. As you can see, I'm kind of in the center there, and I'm gonna go south to the old city, which is kind of the touristy part of town. I only learned the other day that Baku is actually a very famous city in the world of Formula One. And so there's a Grand Prix that's held sometimes that is on this street right next to me. Seems like a good street to drive fast on. I'm now at the beachfront of Baku, and over on my right you can see the Caspian Sea. There are quite a few large ships over in the distance, presumably transporting some of that gas. And over there, you can see some of the architecture that it's used to pay for. over there in the distance, you can see what's maybe Baku's most famous landmark. It's 3 towers known as the Flame Towers. And they're called that because they look like a flame. Last year I visited the country of Kazakhstan, and Baku reminds me a lot of Kazakhstan's capital of Astana. Both have a lot of futuristic buildings and are very clean, but they feel very empty in the spaces that, you know, the city's trying to show off, whereas the people generally live in other parts of the city. So unfortunately I wasn't able to film this, but I just walked through probably the most beautiful underpass I've seen in my life. Yeah, as far as underpasses go, this city gets like an A+. Also right next to me is the old city that I'll be checking out soon. I found some cat houses. They don't seem to be home right now, but this is where they live. I made it to the old city where the roads look like this, and you get to see buildings that look like this. I've been walking around here for about 5 minutes now, and I've barely seen anybody aside from a few locals. I'm kind of shocked. This is the type of place where you would expect like a bunch of tourists and a bunch of like vendors and stuff. Also, there's a cat over there. Well, this place must get some amount of tourism because I just had a guy do the old, no, this way is closed. Come with me this way to my shop. That scam. Can't blame a guy for trying. Check out this little guy. What's your name? I guess he doesn't speak English. I see they have a catapult up there. I respect any place that has a catapult. I just saw a white guy who looks exactly like me. I don't know why that upsets me so much, but it does. I think that's one of the many things that I'm going to have to work out. I'm checking out this ancient palace, and it has a map of Azerbaijan on it, which is presumably not as ancient. Here is the throne room of the palace, and apparently it doesn't look quite the same as what it looked like about 500 years ago. That's when there was an invading army that ransacked the place and took a bunch of shit, but not all of it, so this is what's left. So it seems like 3 different shahs ruled from this place from the 1300s through the 1500s. I don't know what its history has been since then, but I guess maybe I'll find out. This is apparently what water bottles used to be like. I guess I'm not going to complain so much about plastic. If you look on a map, Azerbaijan is right between Iran and Russia. And it seems like historically, Iran has been the bigger influence over its culture. It was only in the 20th century when Azerbaijan was part of the USSR. And presumably that's when Cyrillic was introduced as its alphabet. Surprised to see they have what appears to be a Chris Kindle market here. This is neither the time nor the place I would have expected it. This is a very car-dependent city. There's not a whole lot of public transportation beyond it. However, I do admire how walkable it is. There are plenty of parts of the city where there just aren't any cars, and it's good to walk around. No one that attractive has ever eaten at a Cinnabon before. I'm relaxing a little bit on this beachfront park, which apparently is designated as a national park, which it doesn't seem like you should be allowed to do that. National parks shouldn't just be like regular parks, right? But, oh, and as a follow-up to earlier, I mentioned that the Azerbaijani alphabet was in Cyrillic, but it turns out that they changed that, at least in Azerbaijan, after the fall of the USSR. But there are ethnic Azerbaijanis up in Dagestan, which is the area of Russia just north of here, and they still have a Cyrillic alphabet there. Yesterday I checked out the touristy parts of town, and today I'm going to check out the more residential areas. It's early in the morning, and I've already seen 2 cats resting on benches. That's a good sign for the rest of today. It rained a little bit last night, so these little guys have been drinking out of the puddles. Not when I'm recording them, of course, but just a second ago. Oh, hold on. Now he's still eating the thing. Definitely getting a lot of stares as I walk around here. I think that's because this is a more conservative country, and conservative countries tend not to like people who are weird, and I'm a weird person. It's currently October when I'm recording this, and the weather here is beautiful. I love this fall weather. I always try to look for places that are going to be like 60 or 70 degrees when I visit them. Looks like we got some interesting fungus growing from this tree. Usually I stop to record animals, but this time I stopped to record a fungus. A lot of this city seems to have been built recently. I've noticed that this park that I'm walking around doesn't seem to appear on some of the maps. I've been seeing these sheltered benches around town, and honestly I'm a fan of them. You know, this place is right next to Iran, so I imagine it gets pretty hot in the summer, so those must come in handy. For anybody who's wondering, Azerbaijan does have fancy malls, so let's go check them out. I read that this is the largest mall in Azerbaijan, and honestly I'm not surprised to see one, this big. I've now been to 6 different countries that were part of the USSR, and every single one of them has had a very impressive mall. I'm walking around yet another park in town. This city does a good job of having a lot of parks. And over there is another one of the city's, what do you call them? Buildings. Some guy just came up to me and he saw that I was American, so he wanted to speak to me in English. And he did that for about 40 minutes without really letting me talk at all. He kept talking about geopolitics and his life. And then he repeated himself a lot. And then he asked for money. Still seemed like a nice guy. I've got to admit, it does kind of suck to go to one of these places and meet some guy who acts like your friend and then just ends up asking you for money at the end. Makes you appreciate what girls go through. Well, in addition to stumbling upon Azerbaijan's largest mall, I think I just stumbled upon their largest bazaar. It's this huge area that has countless shops. I'm gonna go check it out for a bit. From what I can tell, it looks like fruit is the most popular item sold in this bazaar, probably followed closely by spices. Just had a conversation with another guy. This guy seems cool as fuck. He was telling me all about Azerbaijani culture and how it's generally more secular here than in other Muslim majority countries. And he was also telling me about how if I wanted to cross the street and there are a lot of cars, I should just walk out there and they'll stop for me. I have noticed that Azerbaijan seems to be a more secular country because it doesn't have the call to prayer that most Muslim majority countries have. Like if you go to Turkey or Oman, there will be a loudspeaker in the center of town where a guy will recite Islamic verses 5 times a day. But that doesn't seem to happen here. Also, you can buy beer in Azerbaijan. I looked it up, and it turns out this place is a hotel. It's called the Crescent Hotel, because it's a crescent. I just got a chai tea latte from Starbucks. This is how I'm spelling my name from now on. That cat is fighting a dragonfly. I think he lost.
one minor complaint that I have about Azerbaijan is that it doesn't seem to have a lot of graffiti. I like graffiti. I think it's art. But when you compare it to, like, Georgia, you know, the neighboring country, that place is like the graffiti capital of the world. I've never seen so much graffiti in one place. So I was expecting to see more here, but oh well.
My cat is just sitting there like a person. It's now already my last full day in Baku. And I think I'm going to take it easy today because I've got a lot of traveling to do tomorrow to get to my next town. The problem is I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. I think there's a bus station at the very edge of town. I don't want to go all the way there today, but I did see that there is a metro that goes pretty much all the way there. So I think while I have the time, I'm going to figure out the metro system at least a little bit so I'm prepared for tomorrow. I found 2 other cat houses that do not have cats in them currently, but I'm sure they stay there overnight.
The reason why I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to travel tomorrow is because this bus station may or may not even exist. I've seen conflicting things about it online, with at least one source saying that it's permanently closed, but other places saying that it's open. If worse comes to worse, I might have to use a taxi or an Uber, but this place is like 2.5 hours away, so that would be very fucking expensive.
All right, good news. I stopped by a metro station and asked for some information on where I could find a bus station that would bring me out to the village I want to go to. And they told me that it was in the spot that I thought it was. So I'm prepared for that for tomorrow.
Yesterday I made some offhand remark about Baku not really having a public transportation system. And turns out I was wrong. It turns out that the metro system is actually very extensive and reliable. So I take that back.
This park has a piano, and some kid was just playing it, and he was playing it very well. I would have recorded it, but I don't want to record kids.
I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but now some other kid is playing the piano.
I don't know how popular playing the piano is here, but I know that chess is very popular here. There are a lot of chess tables around in public areas. And recently an American grandmaster died, and he was part Azerbaijani. I finally made it to the base of those flame towers. This was definitely worth climbing up that very steep hill. Azerbaijan and Turkey are very close allies, to the point that they actually have very similar flags. And so they have this memorial park here dedicated to Turkey. In the early 90s, when the USSR fell apart, Azerbaijan and Armenia went to war. And Turkey, being an ally of Azerbaijan and a hater of Armenia, sent their soldiers to fight. And so this is in memory of them. Over here I'm at a mini Venice, although it's not quite the same as Venice. It's lacking the $90 gondola rides. If you're not quite as rich as Jeff Bezos, don't worry. You can still probably rent out this Venice. I recently got my Italian citizenship, which means I can now say that I find this very offensive to my people.
That place didn't even have real gondolas. They just used motorboats. Although, to its credit, it'll be here in another 100 years, which is more than the real Venice can say.
There's still a lot more to the beach walk that I haven't checked out yet, so I'll be walking down it. And I've been noticing a lot of popcorn stands here. I don't know if popcorn is particularly popular here, but it seems to be. This part of town seems extremely empty, and luckily I found a bench that is in the shade. So all of that means that I found a good place to sleep for about 5 minutes. I think I gave myself just the right amount of time to explore Baku. There was plenty to see here, but I think I'm ready to move on to other parts of Azerbaijan tomorrow. Here is another historical landmark. This one is called the Maiden Tower. I'm not sure how old it is, but it seems very old. And here's a view from a different side of it.
There's a group of girls going around and interviewing tourists, and so they asked me a couple questions, including, what my experience has been like, which countries I visited before, what my favorite country is. I said Azerbaijan. That was the right answer.
Looks like this little guy doesn't have a litter box.
Well, that wraps up this video, but tune in for my next video. Who knows what part of the world it'll be from. It'll be from Azerbaijan again. I'll be going to a different part of the country. All right, see ya.
İsteyenler her iki elden biri, beyazda çok düz iki yeni bugün seçilmesinde iştirak ediyor.